Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is the first virtual but 18th annual review meeting of the Southeast Regional Coastal Monitoring Programme. I hope that you can all hear me, otherwise I'm speaking to the ether and I have nobody else out there. My name, for those of you that don't know or don't recognise my dulcet tones, is Bryan Curtis. I'm the chair of the Southeast Coastal Group, coastal member for the Southern RFCC, chair of the Coastal Group Network, and chair. I've just got feedback myself. Poppy, can you hear that? Keep going. I'll keep going. Okay. I've been a member of the programme since its inception and believe it's the best project that I've ever been involved with. As you can see from the agenda, the day is going to be very, very packed. As this is a virtual meeting, I can dispense with the normal housekeeping and announcements, but would like to draw your attention to one or two important things. The day is planned to consist of 4 parts. Session 1 is general updates and progress. Session 2 is more detailed applications and on applications for coastal management. Session 3 is 4 parallel discussion sessions, and session 4 is final words and questions and feedback. This is a format which everyone has responded to in the past, and we've responded to this to actually put this together. Both the morning sessions will be recorded, and will be freely available to all on the website. The afternoon workshops will also be recorded, but will only be available to the participants, and again will be made available on the website. During the morning sessions, your microphones will be muted so you can't speak. This is a function of the live team system, but that doesn't matter. We do want to hear from you, and we'd like your questions. There's a Q&A function that you should be able to find on the screen, and it works very similar to the chat function. If you use this, not all the questions will be published. They will be sifted through based on lots of superfluous things in there. Questions in, so they will be filtered out. During the afternoon workshop sessions, the groups will be smaller, so your microphones will be open, and we're encouraging you to speak freely. However, the chairs of each group there will only be one of them, and there will be a lot going on. So what we're looking to do is for you to use your hands up function if you'd like to speak. At the end of the day, in the final word session, we're also going to open this up to you all, and this is a large meeting. So we will ask you to mute your microphones and only use the hands up function to ask questions. We've tried a dry run of this, and we've managed it in the past, but fingers crossed for the real thing. And today, already got one glitch. You can hear me speaking in the background. I think it is quite often. This year, this year has been a really, really difficult year. COVID has only added to the problem, but in the main, it's been a very, very busy year as we move from phase 1 to phase 3. It's only 5.5 months before we start phase 3, so not long to go. But on this note, I'd like to thank Charlie and the team for all the hard work in getting where they've got to so far and where they have at the moment. So please don't leave between now and the end of the year, please, Charlie. I would also like, in case something goes wrong, to just thank Poppy, Sam, Charlie, and Thompson for acting as producers for the day. They will be in control of everything that goes on. So I'm really, really pleased and grateful to them for their support. Well, I think now I've covered everything that I was going to be needing. If I haven't, it will be picked up by others, no doubt. capable. I really now want to start proceedings. I'm now going to move to introduce Charlie Thompson to give us an update on programme and progress. Over to you, Charlie.
Thanks very much, Brian. Good morning, all. It's really nice to see so many of you have made it to this first virtual annual partners meeting. And it's my pleasure to kick off the procedure with an introduction and an overview of what we've been up to over the past year. It's always a challenge to fit this into 20 minutes or so, and probably even more so this year. As Bryan said, it's been quite a challenging year, but we've had a lot of successes as well. What I'll do is I'll start off by giving an overview of the Southeast region, but I'll also touch a little bit on change of phase and some of the national elements of the programme as well. I'm not going to avoid the elephant in the room here. COVID-19 has certainly been a focus of the last 6 months of our work, and it's been a very challenging year because of that. It's led to delays in surveys, the early closure or late start to various survey windows and seasons. It's seen the entire team move to working from home, and it's required a complete review of all of our procedures and our risk assessments to make sure that the team could go out into the field safely. It's also given us the opportunity to try remote training. We've had a couple of new starts this year, and the challenges of trying to train them up mostly over technology such as Teams. But what we have been able to do is consolidate a lot of our dissemination work. We are not going to steal Sam's thunder, but we have the new map viewer that's gone live that hopefully many of you have seen, a slightly streamlined website design to make it more intuitive to find things. And of course, we've all embraced these virtual meetings, including this one, so that hopefully we've been more in touch with you and more engaged with all our partners than ever before. I'm now just going to run through each of the data products and services that we provide to our partners. I'll talk a little bit about the challenges, and I hope the take-home message that you get from this actually is that we've been able to overcome these and we've been able to maintain data delivery throughout the programme. It's been a huge success for the whole team in reality. So our topographic surveys were impacted by lockdown at the end of March. This unfortunately coincides with the peak time where we would normally be doing our spring surveys. It led to us writing a lot of new procedures and risk assessments to ensure that we could get the surveyors safely back out in the field with social distancing and other measures in place, both for their own safety and of course the safety of the public whom they do sometimes interact with when they're out doing the surveys. We had a chance to test those new procedures in April of that year when we undertook an exceptional survey to look at a failing sea wall in Milford, and we were able to utilise our UAV to do that. And it's showcased really how technology can help us overcome some of these problems. We deemed it was safe to resume surveys in May of this year, and we've been catching up with them all over the summer period. And I just want to take a moment now to thank all of the surveyors, all of the survey teams for their hard work in catching up with that schedule, for adapting to all of these new procedures that we've put in place. They've done a great job, and we've actually managed to catch up with everything that was delayed during that initial lockdown period. So in total, over the last year since I last spoke to you, we've performed interim surveys on 122 profiles. There have been baseline surveys on 46 units, and we've also undertaken 17 other surveys, which include things like the cliff monitoring that we do. And in total, we've added over 8,500 new profiles to the SANS databases. So we're very well on track, and I think that's even more profiles added than there was last year. The lingering impact of those lockdowns might be that we've had to swap a baseline survey for an interim survey if we felt that that was safer, especially over the initial period when we started our surveys again. But mainly it'll be that there might be a shorter time interval in between your spring and autumn surveys than there is normally. We've tried to maximise the distance between those surveys, but that's really the only impact that it's had on our topographic survey, and we continue with the autumn surveys at the moment. The UAV has really proven to be useful during this period. It's a survey technique that we've been working on in the background for a little while. We've had other presentations on this. But the benefits during lockdown has been that you can cover a large area without having to move yourself and with a limited amount of surveyors on the ground. It's proved particularly useful during surveys of, for example, the Milford seawall, as it's a rapidly changing area which has been difficult to get to on the ground to do more traditional surveys. And we've also made use of it to undertake one or two of our baseline surveys where it wasn't deemed that we could do that safely socially distanced. We have put a lot of work into checking that the data that's coming out of these surveys meets all of our specifications and our standards for the data, and we're very happy actually with the results that we've been getting from it. And that's not to say that it's going to be replacing boots on the ground. It's not suitable for all conditions or all areas that we survey, but I can certainly see that we'll be using it a lot more in the future as well. Our LiDAR survey has also been affected by lockdown. This interrupted the 1920 flying season, which normally runs from mid-September to the end of March. And unfortunately, we had over 200 kilometres squared of coastline still outstanding when the lockdown came into effect. The Environment Agency, of course, had who undertake our LiDAR survey through the geomatics team, had to think very carefully about how to safely resume flying in a small aircraft. And over the summer, we did a lot of preparation and prioritisation for the upcoming 2021 season, when we knew that we would be getting some new LiDAR captured. So normally what would happen in 2021 is we'd cover the eastern side of the southeast region. And this prioritisation led to a lot of scribbled maps where we highlighted those areas of particular importance in the western side that was missed because of that early closure of the season, and of course in the eastern side where we would normally be capturing today. The good news here, though, is that we had some very good weather as the new 2020-21 season opened up. So in September, in a single weekend, the geomatics team were able to go out and they captured almost 190 kilometres squared of that outstanding data within that first window. And in fact, they've already got 43% of the total schedule in the bag. It's a great early win, and it gives us confidence that actually we will be able to capture the remaining outstanding areas as well as what's normally scheduled for this period. So it's huge thanks to the geomatics team here. We're very aware it's going to take a little while to get that much data to us, but in the meanwhile, Sam Pitman has been busily quality controlling the data from the 2019-20 season. And I can give you a sneak peek of that here. So this is, of course, Poole Harbour, where geomatics tried a new polygon system to try and get the best tidal limits here, which has resulted in a really nice LiDAR data set for this particular area. And this is an example of the Dungeness frontage, which is one of the rare areas in the southeast where we actually capture this data every year rather than every other year. So again, we're hopeful that actually the impacts of COVID and the lockdown are going to be relatively small on the LiDAR data that we provide. Aerial photography had the opposite problem. So normally the aerial photography season starts in March and goes through until the end of September. And of course, that meant that there was a late start to the season, both because of the initial lockdown and then while the two contractors that were working with us, Scient and IIC, put together their risk assessments and their new procedures. Unfortunately, that was a lovely period of clear weather that we missed out on. And when both contractors were ready to resume flights in July, this is when we started to get some less favourable weather. And this also coincided with some limited tidal windows during daylight hours as well. So this has been a real challenge. The aerial photography was actually originally scheduled for 2019. And difficult conditions last year meant that we had one work package within the western portion left to capture, and that was successfully captured in September. So that top left image is now completely captured, and the eastern area unfortunately had no capture in 2019. But luckily that good weather in September has ensured that we have managed complete capture of that area as well. We have had to make a compromise here. We have had to relax the tidal limits slightly from mean low water springs just to allow capture at all during some very limited tidal windows. But the key is that we have managed to get capture of full aerial photography for the southeast region, which is a great win for this year as well. Our bathymetry data, we didn't have any swath bathymetry scheduled for this year for the southeast region, but as you can see from this image, we're doing really well in our aim to capture the white ribbon all around the English coastline. Our collaboration with the MCA has seen surveys in Wales and in the southwest area over the past year, and there's currently a survey that's ongoing in the northeast as well. And there are plans that there may be a collaboration for a nearshore extension in the northwest of England over the next few months as well. We obviously still undertake our single beam surveys. They were delayed because of lockdown and working on a small vessel, but they've now resumed. We've recently undertaken a survey of the Pevensey Bay frontage, and this year's Hayling Island frontage survey is being scheduled in as soon as we can get a good clear weather window for that. So again, limited impact on that kind of data set. Our hydrodynamics network has been doing sterling work, obviously not so affected by lockdown as it just sits there collecting its data. There have been a few delays to some of the scheduled services that we had while Fugro put in place some new procedures to undertake those. There have been a few access restrictions to shore stations as well, and initially there was a furlough of Fugro staff, but actually that had no impact on the delivery of the network. Throughout this time, we've made sure that emergency works have been prioritised, as they always are. So this means that if we did have AWOL events or buoys that went dark, they wouldn't pose a danger to mariners. And that means we've been able to maintain data delivery throughout this period in the most case, or rather this year's data recovery looks much the same as previous years. We have had 5 AWOL events this year, but 3 of those were before COVID restrictions came in, and actually all 3 of those were Hayling Island. And then 2 since, which have been related to vessel cutting moorings. But other than that, it's all been fairly quiet this year. We've had a couple of big storms. In February, we had Storm Kira come through, where we reached the 2-year return period in many of our southeast locations. And then that was rapidly followed by Storm Dennis, which reached the 1 in 1 year return period on some of those sites as well. More recently, of course, we've had Storm Alex. Thomas is putting together a good map for this, but we do know that we reached the 1 in 1 year return period in Weymouth, almost to the 2-year period, but not quite. And actually in Boscombe, this was recorded as a 5-year return period event. So a significant event along the south coast. We've done a couple of post-storm surveys as well related to these, so we can put together some understanding of the effect that these storms had on shoreline change. Our tide and met stations as well continue to give us good data. This is where many of the access restrictions have had slightly more impact getting onto site and doing works on some of these. But one of the good successes of this year is that the Arran platform tide gauge, which has unfortunately been out of action for a sustained period, has now been giving us some data. So that's great news. Arran platform's back online. Some of our other stations, so Deal Pier and Lymington, which have had a hard life. This is an image of Deal Pier here. Will need some maintenance work going forward to the platforms on which they're attached to as well. So that'll be planned in over the next few months and into the next phase. So that covers kind of data collection. I did want to say a few words about dissemination and delivery of that data as well. I don't want to steal any of Sam's thunder, so I'm just going to talk about traffic through the website and downloads of data through the website. We've had, over the past 12 months, 73 million hits onto the website. So we're averaging about 6 million visits or hits per month. So about 1 million more per month than we had last year, which is great news. We have seen an uptick over the period where we've swapped to the new map viewer and the new version of the website. I'm very aware that might be a blip that goes down again, but hopefully we can retain those higher levels as we move forwards with those new platforms, which is great. And those very healthy visits to the website have been translated into very good downloads of the data as well. So again, over the last year, we've had about £40 million worth of data downloaded from the website. And in particular, since in quarters 2 and 3, since the new map viewer went live, we've seen an uptick in the number of downloads that we've been getting. So as you all know, we track, we ask people when they download their data, where they're from and what they're using the data for. You can see that a lot of this data is actually going to the universities, either through the research or directly to students. And this is great. It shows how well integrated our data is into what will be the new generation of coastal scientists and engineers. It's a very hopeful sign for the future. And of course, I should note that this doesn't count direct delivery of the data, where we might give it in a SANS database to a partner directly as well. We also look at which of the data sets are getting downloaded. You can see that bathymetry and hydrodynamics remain extremely popular to download, the less commonly used ones are our mapping products, so seabed mapping and habitat mapping, although those have increased over the last year. I think what this shows is that actually people are looking for the raw data rather than the products, and they are going to carry out their own analysis on that, moving it forwards. So that's kind of the southeast focus, but of course the other focus of CCO in the last couple of years has been the move towards the end of the national phase 2 and the southeast regional phase 4 of monitoring. The monitoring programme is a long-standing programme which has evolved a lot over the years. We've done a lot of collaboration and engagement with you, our partners, over this period, and you've helped us a lot in order to put together that business case. So thank you all for your inputs on that. We were able to submit the outlined business case in December last year, and we received our technical approval for that in February of this year, and we're just awaiting our final allocations approvals from that as well. So this is great news as we move towards the next phase. Changes that you'll see in the next phase, we're going to be a year longer, so the phase is going to be 6 years rather than 5, and that just brings us in line with the Environment Agency's medium-term plan schedule. And also we are hoping to add our asset database and monitoring to the scheme as well. We're also looking at replacement of some of the wave rider buoys and tide gauges that are getting towards the end of their lifespan. This has been a huge effort from all of the national partners to put together, and we're really looking forward to developing the programme in the future. If you've got any questions about this, hopefully you're signed up for one of the workshops this afternoon, where we can have more of a discussion and talk to you more closely about what we're planning in the next phase, in particular for the South East region, and any changes that you might see to the programme moving forwards. And so I just want to finish by saying thank you very much to all of you, our partners who support us, to the team at CCO and to our other surveying partners throughout the South East region for all of the work they've put in through this very challenging year. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the programme today, and I'll pass you back over to Bryan now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. I trust you can all hear me still. Can you hear me, Pop? Oh, thank you. Thank you once again, Charlie. A whistle-stop tour, and despite the effects of preparation for the next phase, COVID lockdown, 3 major storms, the programme still looks in really good shape. So my grateful thanks to you and the team for that. I still can't believe we've got 73 million hits on the website. That's pretty good going as well. So without further ado, we're bang on time now, and I'd like now to just hand over to Sam Pitman to give us an update on the website development and the way forward. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Bryan. Hello everyone, I'm Sam Pitman from the CCO. I'm the GIS analyst, and I'm going to take you through a quick the updates to our website over the last year. So the main changes that have happened to the website is that we've got a new updated design, as Charlie was saying earlier. This should create a more friendly and streamlined experience for all our users. So in front of you here, you can see our new look homepage, which has had a slight redesign. Most noticeably, you can see that we've now integrated our Twitter feed on the right-hand side of the page, but also you might notice that some of the tabs have changed slightly. Across the website, it maintains the same basic structure, so it shouldn't confuse you too much, hopefully. It should just help get, we've taken out a few steps to get to places, so it should make getting to where you want to be a bit easier, and crucially, making it easier to access the data. It's worth noting that the functionality of the old website is still there, and I'm going to just take you on a whistle-stop tour of some of the most noticeable changes which should improve your experience. So first up, I'm going to talk to you about the new My Account drop-down and the new login system. So over here on the top right-hand side, you can see that we've got a new tab that's called My Account. This is now where you log in and go for all your account management needs. This is in the same place consistently throughout the whole website, so you always know where you need to go to log in, because it used to be a bit confusing in the old website. So now you can just log in once and you always know when you're logged in and you're good to go. Okay, the next, and in my opinion most exciting update, is our new look map viewer. So the map viewer and data catalog have had a major update. Clicking on the map viewer and catalog tab will now take you straight through to the map viewer page, rather than taking you to an account management page like it did before, because all of that functionality has now been shifted across to this My Account tab. So you get straight in and looking at the data much quicker. It has a new look with background mapping and also a full screen view, so it should make navigating to the data you're interested in much easier. All the same tools as before are available through this toolbar on the left-hand side. So you can still zoom in, zoom out, make the selection as you used to. But yeah, with this new and improved look, If you do have any confusion with the new design, there's this really handy information button at the bottom of the toolbar on the left side, and it will take you through step by step what you can do and how to make the most of the map viewer. Okay, the other exciting thing about the map viewer and data catalog is that the download system has had a slight redesign, which should make it easier to use. These are now all managed from within the map viewer, so this pops up as a pop-up on the map you're looking at, so you don't need to flick between multiple pages. You can now easily move between these tabs all within one page, so you can update what you're looking at, change your selection really easily and without having to refresh the page lots of times. This should be noticeably quicker than it was before. It's also worth noting that the background download system has also changed slightly, so we've lifted the data limit, so now you can download much larger data sets all in one go. So if before you have had trouble having to download lots of separate little sections of your data, you can now do it all in one go, and that should speed up the process for you. This download system is also the same for the reports. So if you're looking at downloading reports, it will take you to this same page, so the downloads are consistent across the website. It's also worth noting that if you're confused by some of the tabs moving from this top bar, they've all moved to a handy general drop down in the top right hand side. Similarly to the My Account drop down, this is consistent across the website, so you've got easy access to all this important information wherever you are. Yeah, it's also worth noting that throughout the whole website, you should notice a slight visual refresh, which should hopefully make the experience slightly more user-friendly throughout everything. There's been a few updates to our resources page. Both Wirewall and Coastal Res have received their final reports, so if you're interested in these, I would suggest you have a look at the resources page, and you can see the final reports. So I'll also talk to you about what we've got planned coming up in the future. One thing we're looking into at the moment is 3D visualization of survey data on the website. So we've got a lot of 3D data, and we're currently looking into implementing some sort of 3D viewer on our website. So not only having the 3D data available, point clouds from our laser scanner and drone and things like that, but also having a way to look at this data on our website. So this should mean that you can see the 3D data, but then not just have to download it to check that it's actually the data you want, but be able to fly around and look at it in a 3D space online without having to have it on your computer. So yeah, that should hopefully make the experience of getting your data a bit more useful, and you'll be able to check data on the website without necessarily having to download everything. We're also looking into updating the photo gallery by implementing a map viewer there. So rather than having to click through multiple folders and type in very specific search terms, you should just be able to navigate to where you're interested in and see all the photos associated with that area there, just like in the normal map viewer. So there are just a couple of ideas. We've got a lot of other things going on in the background, but I think those are two of the most exciting ones. As always, I'm going to point you in the direction of our Twitter page. So if you're interested in the latest updates and what's going on with the CCO and the Southeast Coastal team, you can check out our Twitter at Channel Coast and see it all there. We also post all of our Channel Coast newsletters on our Twitter. So if you're not subscribed to that, you can also access all of the latest news through our newsletter via Twitter. And it's also available on our front page now to bring it full circle. So yeah, if you've got any questions about the website or anything relating to it, please post them in the Q&A. But I do have one question of everyone watching. If you're using our website, we'd really appreciate it if you could use the feedback button at the bottom. Tell us what you think of the new design, and if there's anything that you think could do with an improvement or anything that you really like, we'd really appreciate your feedback. And if you've got anything a bit longer that you want to send through, feel free to email me or send it to the CCO general email address, and I will get that too. Thank you very much. That's been the website update for 2020, and I'll hand you back over to Bryan now.
Thank you very much, Sam. You brought what could have been a very dull subject to life. Thank you very much. That was really good. Thank you. I particularly like the mapping, the map viewer, and for going to photos. I think that's an excellent thing. And just to echo what Sam has just said, we need your feedback on what's good, what's bad, so that we can actually respond to your needs in the future. So please start feeding back. Even if you don't do it through the question and answer today, you can do it directly with Sam through his email or through the website, or phone him up and find out a little more about it, whichever way you like. Before we move on, I just wanted to let you know we've got approximately 60 people now online, which is excellent. So I now know that I'm not talking just to myself, which is really quite handy. And I'm just filling in a little space and time before I move on to Thomas. Thomas Dhoop is going to give us an update, developments and the way forward on hydrodynamics. So Thomas, over to you.
All right, good morning everyone, and welcome to the Southeast Hydrodynamics update. I'll be talking to you about 3 topics this morning. The first one is a recap of what I spoke about last year as well, which is an update on the time shift of our entire data set of wave data measured by our wave buoys. The second topic is a planned new wave buoy at Rye Bay. And then the third topic is introducing you some innovations in our mooring design that we use at our Southeast wave buoys over the last few years, but in particular over the last year. So first topic, the time shift. Some background first. This can get a little bit complicated, but I'm hoping you'll all be able to follow. So as you know, we have a number of wave buoys bobbing along the southeast English coast, and these wave buoys communicate to shore stations through HF transmission. So the wave buoy itself does 2 forms of analysis. And that analysis produces 2 different output parameters, so 2 different output files with different parameters. So the first bit of analysis it does zero upcross statistics, and that produces a history of upcross wave parameters, or a HUE file, and it does spectral analysis, which produces a history of spectral parameters, which produces a HIS file. Okay, so those are the 2 main ways that our wave buoys do analysis and the output that they provide to us. So I'm going to walk you through an example of waves measured between 10 and 10:30. Okay, so let's say it's 10 and we're switching on our wave buoy, and we're going to be measuring waves for the next half-hour period. That means that at 10:30, a HUE file, which is essentially displacement data of the buoy, is generated and received. And this HUE file is timestamped at the start of the burst at 10. So that file is received and available to us almost instantaneously. Then between 10:30 and 11, a HIS file, so the results of the spectral analysis, is generated and transmitted in 8 bursts. So that happens during the next half-hour measurement period. Then at 11, that HIS file is received and timestamped as 10:30 at the end of the burst. Okay, so just to quickly recap, we have 2 different ways of doing analysis: spectral, displacement. These 2 come in 2 different files. These 2 files are received at different points in time, and they're timestamped in different ways. Okay. So let's see what that looks like as we receive the files into our file structure. So let's say it's 10 a.m. We have no files in our file structure because we've only just switched the buoy on, and we're currently measuring our first half-hour wave record. At 10:30, we will receive our first displacement file, the HUE file. We will see that almost instantaneously. And then at 11, we will receive the 10:30 HIS file as well. And it's this 10 HUE file and 10:30 HIS file that pertain to the same measuring period between 10 and 10:30. Okay, so I hope everybody's following so far. So I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated now by introducing waves measured between 10:30 and 11 as well. What does that look like as it comes into our file structure? So at 10, no files because we've only just switched on the buoy and we're measuring our first half hour of waves. At 10:30, we receive our first HUE file, so displacement data. And at 11, we retain that 10 HUE file and we receive our next HUE file for the following measurement period between 10:30 and 11. And we receive our first HUE file that pertains to the first measurement period between 10 and 10:30. And then at 11:30, we get our third hue file for the third measurement period, and we get our next his file for the second measurement period. Okay. So here I've color-coded these files just to show you which ones actually belong together in terms of waves being measured simultaneously. So a crucial bit to understand is that in 2003, at the inception of the network, the decision was made to provide users of the website with the latest possible data that we could provide. But that had consequences. And the consequence is that we had started mixing wave parameters. So if we look, for example, at our file structure at 11, if we provide you with the latest possible data at 11, we are providing you with the 1030 hue file, so the results of the zero upcross statistics like Hmax, for example, and the 1030 his file, which are the spectral parameters like HS, TP, TZ. So here we're mixing wave parameters because the 1030 hue file pertains to waves measured between 1030 and 11, and the 1030 his file pertains to waves measured between 10 and 1030. So about 2 years ago now, we've decided to go back on this decision, change the way that we provide the data in real time so that all of our wave data and the results of the different forms of analysis is being provided concurrent. And we decided to basically change our entire back catalog as well, so everything that we provide is concurrent also in the QC'd downloaded data. Okay, so some of you may wonder, half an hour, what's the big deal? Does it really matter for my wave data? So if you're doing summary statistics on a week, a month, a year's worth of data, it's not going to matter all that much. It's really once you start using our wave data in combination with other data sets, let's say, for example, tide data, that differences can become significant. So this is an example here. So what I've done here is I've plotted a storm on the 10th of November 2018 as measured by the Hailing Island Wave Rider Board. And on top of that, I've plotted the tides measured by the Portsmouth National Tide Gauge. So the gray line is showing you significant wave height as measured in the old way, so the pre-time shifted data set. And the black line is the time shifted data set, so the new data set. Okay, so if you look at which point does the peak of the storm, at what tidal stage did that occur in the old data set, we see that occurred at about 4 meters and 9 centimeters above chart datum. While if we look at the new data set, which has been time shifted, the peak of the storm is now occurring at a tidal elevation of 3 meters and 61 centimeters. So that's a difference of about 48 centimeters. So even along the southeast coast, that can cause significant differences that have to be paid attention to. Okay, so how did we deal with this? So in reality, things are still a bit more complex than what I've explained them to be here, which meant that just a straightforward shifting in time was not an option. So what we did is we regenerated all of the wave data from the raw files that are transmitted from the buoy through HF, applying a formula to deal with the time shift out of all wave buoys. Then, as many of you know, at the end of each year, we go through an exercise of where we use data downloaded directly from the buoy, we generate wave parameters from that, and then fill in gaps that have occurred throughout the year due to HF communication issues. So that was an exercise that had to be redone for every year for all of our wave buoys as well. And then that new data set had to be quality controlled again. So the time shifted data set was put through a more automated QC procedure than the one before, but there was still a light touch manual QC involved, mainly focused on HS. So all of these steps have now been done, and the Southeast has been supplied with a fully new wave data set, which is now time shifted to provide concurrent wave parameters, both from the spectral side and the zero upcross statistics side of things. Okay, so that deals with the back catalog. We also had to make some changes in the way that we supply data onto the website in real time. So our contractor had to come up with a new regime for producing raw data files, which are packaged at ShoreStation, to push through to our website. So that website, so the software has now been updated at some of our sites, but not others. So we're running updated software at Boscombe, Sandown, Seaford, Pevensey, Folkestone, and Goodwin. And we're running old software at Weymouth, Milford, Hayling, Berkshire, and Rustington. So where updated software is running, that means that the real-time data we provide is in sync with spectral and zero upcross parameters. At the old software, there's still the old mixing happening, essentially. The reason that not everything has been updated yet is because at those sites where the old software is still running, we're taking in multiple data streams, including tide and met data. And basically that software cannot just be updated, it has to be rewritten from scratch. So that's currently happening at our contractor at Fugro. However, if you download quality control data from any of our sites along the Southeast Coast, you will be getting the synced quality control data, because in the quality control step, I sync up all of the data. Okay, so the new data set, which has been time shifted, went through a new QC procedure, is also slightly different because, one, it went through a different QC procedure, and two, because I might have regenerated different amounts of data compared to my predecessors to fill in the gaps in the boys due to age of communication errors. So what I've done here is I'm showing you a table of, first of all, the pre-time shifted data set, so the old data set. Along the x-axis on the top here, you can see your individual waveboy sites in the Southeast, and along the y-axis is the year of deployment. And this is showing you the recovery rate. So for example, at Boscombe in 2018, we had a full recovery rate of 100%. So these were recovery rates for the old data set. These are recovery rates for the new data set. And this is showing you the difference between the two. In blue, it is neutral, nothing was added or lost. In green, some more data was regenerated by myself. So we have now a more complete data set, you could say. And in red, there was some data lost. So the biggest loss was at Milford in 2016, and that was due to a particular QC decision that I can elaborate on if you want, but I'll skip over that for now. Okay, actually, the actual content of the data, if you produce some summary statistics, will be slightly different as well. So what I've done here is I've plotted the exceedance statistics of the waves out of all of our wave buoys, again plotted on the x-axis, and individual years on the y-axis. This table is showing you the 10% exceedance, and it's showing you the difference in 10% exceedance between the old and new data sets. So for example, the 10% highest waves at Boscombe in 2003, if we compare the old and new data set, there's a difference of about 1 centimeter. Okay, so the differences are very small when you look at the 10% exceedance. When we look at the 1% exceedance, so we're really talking about very high waves at this point, then again, differences are very small. There's one exception here at Sandown in 2010, which again has a particular reason that I won't go into now, but I'm happy to answer questions on afterwards. Okay, and the 0.05% exceedance. So we're really talking about peaks at this point, individual storm peaks. Here, differences can be a bit bigger because we're really talking about the QC of individual storms at this point, which will be slightly different from the old data sets. Okay, this is a comparison of univariate wave extremes for all of our sites. So for the majority of our sites, the extremes are not all that different. Two sites, if these are your buoys of interest to pay attention to, are Weymouth and Boscombe. Okay, as an ancillary to the update and the production of a new wave data set, we've also produced a full catalog of new annual wave reports. So that means that for any one of our buoys, including those deployed in 2003 and are still deployed now, there's now a full catalog. So I assume that would be 16 annual wave reports for each one of our wave buoy sites that are now available based on the new data set. And of course, also all the storm alert thresholds on the real-time data pages have been updated based on the new extremes analysis of the new data set. Okay, so that rounds off the time shift. Second topic of the day is the planned deployment of Rye Bay. So it is a new deployment, but it's actually also a sort of a redeployment of a buoy we had there before. So we had a former deployment at Rye Bay, which occurred between August 2008 and April 2013. That was an EA buoy managed by ourselves, and the system for the planned new deployment will be exactly the same. It will be an EA buoy managed by ourselves. So our previous buoy there had quite a tumultuous life. It occurred 5 drift events and was collided with once. And actually once ended up in Rotterdam in the Maasvlakte 2 terminal. So that's by far the furthest that one of our buoys has ever gotten to. One of the things we suffered from with the buoy was a lack of local support, not in terms of the user base of the data, but in terms of actually physically having somebody on site, site contact to reboot a computer or jiggle an antenna or something along those lines. So we're working hard to remedy that now. So between August 2008 and April 2013, in April 2013, after the 5-year period that the agreement ended between the EA and the CCO, the site was given up on because of its tumultuous life. So there's now renewed interest in wave measurements at Rye Bay in light of the EA scheme at the lid ranges. So we will be redeploying the buoy for 5 years initially, hopefully to be absorbed into the network and be a long-term deployment like our other buoys. And we've put several mitigation strategies in place to make sure that the tumultuous life of the previous buoy is not repeated. So one of those things is that the buoy that will be deployed there now will be deployed with satellite communications enabled, so it will have iridium connection. So when the buoy goes adrift, we'll flip on the satellite communications and we can track it. We'll also deploy a surface marker buoy in between the first and second bungees, which float on the top of the surface, to make sure that both the mooring and the buoy is visible for marine users. And we're currently going through an extensive local consultation with all local stakeholders to make sure that they are aware that a buoy will be deployed, to make sure we're deploying it in a position that's advantageous to them, to make sure that there's just general awareness that the buoy will be out there. So where are we currently at with this? Well, the equipment has been purchased and we're awaiting delivery, and the MMO and Karna State license is pending for that. And then finally, I'll check how much time I have left. So we've got about 5 minutes left to talk about innovations in our mooring system. So these innovations have occurred over the last couple of years, but we've really had a few changes in the last year or so that have made some big differences. So I won't run through what the entire mooring actually looks like. Fundamentally, we are still using data wells shallow water mooring. I'll just skip straight through to the actual changes that we've made to that mooring. So one of the changes we've made is the introduction of Peterson shackles to replace the data well shackles. So there's quite a lot of D shackles involved in our mooring system. We used to buy exclusively data well shackles, so we're now using Peterson shackles instead, which are cheaper but work just as well. So that's been a cost-saving exercise for the program. Another innovation has been in the introduction of a swivel between the first pellet float and the riser line. So what you're seeing here on this picture is basically a bungee that is being wrapped up in the riser line, which leads to the anchor. So I can show you this on the picture. So this is the riser line and the first bungee, and these used to get tangled quite a bit, making the buoy far less free floating, essentially, so impacting potentially the wave measurements. So to mitigate that, at the first pellet float between the riser line and the bungee, which you can see here zoomed in, this little device was introduced, this swivel, and that has pretty much resolved that problem. Okay, so the biggest change has come from actually replacing the riser line, which used to be a polyprop line with PP terminals, which looks like this, so a polyprop line. This is a PP terminal. So that's how the line is terminated, with the eye here, which used to be shackled to the pellet float in the first bungee, and a little eye to hook the mooring with. So these are quite inconvenient to actually pull the pull the anchor on board or anything like that. It's hard to put them on a winch when you have PP terminals. So we had a lot of complaints from vessels that they've had to work with these things. So we decided to switch to a Dyneema riser line, which has the added advantage to be more strong and more durable as well. So this is what the Dyneema line termination looks like now. The Dyneemas have a minimum breaking load of 14.2 tons, which is significantly more than the polyprop lines, and hopefully that will produce a longer lifespan for these Dyneemas. So their lifespan has been rated at 12 months when deployed at sea. So we've actually done some tests on that now as well. So the remainder of the presentation is full credit to Fugro, which is our contractor. This is not work done by ourselves, but for us by Fugro. So the Dyneema lines, after they were deployed for 12 months, have been tested for strength with the aim of extending the lifespan from 12 to 18 and potentially 24 months. So we've done this as a potential cost saving for the monitoring program, but also to minimize the waste generated by the project. So we basically pulled these lines on a 5-meter, 100-ton test bed at Vulcan Offshore Limited in Southampton. So the lines we pulled were Penzance, Loubet, and Port Leven. Penzance and Loubet were loaded to 16 and 20 tons respectively and did not part. And Port Leven was pulled to 24 tons and parted at 24 tons. So as a reference, the minimum breaking load that they're rated to is 14.2 tons, so they exceeded that significantly. So what did we find? So we found that the splices and eyes retained strength well, and there was no appreciable reduction in strength below their minimum breaking load after being deployed for 12 months at sea. So out of this, we will action an extension of the lifespan of the lines to 18 months, and we will test again at 18 months with the aim of extending the lifespan to 24 months. Another finding was that under heavy loads, the rope fibers stiffen and take on this quite distinctive look. So we will action from this that at 12 months, we will do an out-of-water inspection of our riser lines to see if this sort of deformation can be detected, which means that the riser line was put under a lot of strain. And finally, we found that biofouling and particulates can penetrate the fibers of the rope. And in fact, at the 24-ton load of the Port 11 riser line, it did part in a location where a lot of biofouling and particulates were present. So we will action from this that after 12 months deployment, we will basically just flip the line over. So top will come bottom and bottom will become top. The reasoning here is that there's the idea is that there's different amounts of biofoulings throughout the water column, and we're hoping to spread it across the line instead of focusing it on one particular part by flipping the line after 12 months. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions. Please put them in the Q&A. If you don't have any time for questions to type them out now, then feel free to send me an email at thomas.dhoop@noc.ac.uk. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much. You're right, it was complicated, and you did lose me in the first section, but I was able to keep up with you in the mooring part, which is really quite handy for me. So thank you very much for that. As Thomas has requested, any questions to him would be really appreciated. Well, we're 4 minutes ahead of our stop-off time, and just one announcement I wanted to make beforehand. We're now up to 62 members online, and I just wanted to make sure that at the end of this session, you leave the session and then come back in for the next session, because each one of these has been set up as a separate meeting. So you'll need to leave this meeting at the end and then come in on the next session. What I wanted to do now is just use the final few minutes just to answer one question. We've had one from Anonymous complimenting us on the excellent website. It looks amazing. But we do have one question from Alan Frampton, and this one's going to be for Sam or Charlie. Are there any plans to add Future Coast Fly by photography to the website? It could be a useful resource to go with other mapped information, in photo library images proposed. Sam or Charlie, could you just take that one in the last few minutes?
Thank you, Brian. I think I'll take that one. So at the moment, the decision was made when the Future Coast data was converted and put on the website not to include the oblique aerial photography with that. But if it's something that's of interest to people, we can certainly look into whether we can get availability of that data and whether we can make it available as a layer on the website. If there's other photography within the Future Coast project that you're interested in as well, we'll just have to discuss kind of ownership and copyright issues, but certainly we can work towards getting that online as well. I'm very keen to make anything that we can available to the wider community, especially sources of data like this, which are kind of trapped in archives. So Alan, I'm more than happy to take that up with you afterwards, and we can discuss kind of what you were thinking and whether we can action that in the future. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the first session. As I say, I'll just reiterate, if you now leave this session, because we no longer will be live on it as of past. So, and then if you want to rejoin the next session by the invitations that you've been sent. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank all the speakers. I know you can't join me in a hand clap, but I'm sure you would do. So thank you to all the speakers, and that I think will conclude this session. Thank you very much.